Okay, well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Mayor Val Vandenbroek, and I'd like to call the November 2nd, 2020 regular council meeting to order and begin by acknowledging that the land on which we gather this afternoon is the traditional unceded territory of the Kaitsi, Kwantlen, Massasoit, and Semiahmoo First Nation. So with me this afternoon, I have my council members. We have Councillor Rudy Stortaboom, Councillor Rosemary Wallace, Councillor Gail Martin, Councillor Terry James, Councillor Nathan Bahal, and Councillor Paul Albrecht. And for staff today, we have Mr. Darren Light, who's our Director of Corporate Services, Kelly Kenny, who's our Corporate Officer, Francis Chung, our Chief Administrative Officer. We have Carl Johansson, our Director of Development Services, Rick Baumhoff, our Director of Engineering, Parks and Environment, and I believe Kim Hilton, our Director of Recreation, Culture and Community Services. So we are going to start off with the adoption of the November 20th, 2020 regular agenda, that the November 2nd, 2020 agenda be adopted as circulated. Any changes or additions to the agenda? I need a mover and a seconder. Councillor Stortaboom. Did you want to speak to it?
I just wanted to add something under new business, notice of motion in support of our first delegation.
Okay, great. Okay, so we can add that with the amendment and vote on the amendment. I need a mover and a seconder on that, please.
Move.
Nathan and Councillor Pahal and Councillor Wallace. Any other changes? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? That carries. Okay, regular meeting minutes from October 19th, 2020, that the minutes of the regular meeting held on October 19th, 2020 be adopted as circulated. Any corrections? Mover, a seconder, Councillor Stortaboom, and seconder to that, please. Councillor Wallace, thank you. All those in favor? Any opposed? That carries. All right, well, we have a few delegations today. I keep saying tonight and it's this afternoon, I apologize. Little different on Zoom. So I will call up first. We have World Beyond War, a request to diverse from weapons and fossil fuels. And I believe we have Brendan Martin and Marilyn Constable here.
Yes, Mayor Vandenbroek, we are here. Good afternoon, councillors. May I begin by sharing the screen?
Absolutely, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, there we are. My name is Brendan Martin, and I'm pleased to have Marilyn Constable join us today. We appear as citizens of Langley and as World Beyond War peace advocates. World Beyond War is just a 6-year-old organization, and its aim is to abolish through nonviolent means the institution of war. Today, we want to talk first about the Treaty on Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons, and specifically about the Mayors for Peace Cities Appeal. Just with regard to the city's appeal of ICAN, ICAN is the International Campaign to Abolish Nuclear Weapons. The treaty actually was ratified just over a week ago and will come into legal force in January, this coming January. This is a big deal. We're very excited about this. Activists have worked on this for decades, and it's thought to be a game changer. It's, as it says here, an historic milestone. The treaty is binding on the 50 countries which ratify it. 122 countries signed it in July of 2017. And the thing about it is, even though the nuclear weapons states have not signed it, it can influence the behavior of states which are not party to it, as shown by other weapons prohibition treaties, such as the Cluster Bomb Treaty. So what can Langley City do? You can support the treaty by signing the Mayors for Peace Cities Appeal. And Mayor Van den Broek and Councillor Stordepom and Councillor Warris, you heard something about this when you very kindly joined us with past President Mary Wynne Ashford in a virtual meeting early this summer. So how to endorse the appeal? You just, when you've made the decision, you send an email to ICANN indicating that the city has agreed to endorse the city's appeal, the treaty, in other words. And this is particularly for nations, local governments in nations that have not yet ratified the treaty on the prohibition of nuclear weapons. And unfortunately, Canada has not ratified it. So there are some other important things that you can do. Please write to our government in Ottawa, asking that they endorse the treaty without delay. Also, you can inform the media and Langley City residents. And lastly, take steps to ensure that funds administered by the city are not invested in companies that produce nuclear weapons. I'm going to jump now to climate change and fossil fuel. This is another existential threat. Unfortunately, many experts tell us that even with the Paris Accord, the temperature will rise by 4 degrees Celsius by the end of the century compared with pre-industrial levels. We thank City Council for your great work for climate action to date. And we know that Council is climate sincere. We ask Council now to resolve to divest from fossil fuels and from weapons. Vancouver City Council is certainly making great strides in this regard. And just, I think, mid-October, it endorsed something more ambitious, the Fossil Fuel Non-Proliferation Treaty, which, although it talks in language that relates to nuclear weapons, it's not, of course, about nuclear weapons. It's about the threat to humankind. Now I'm going to talk about divesting from weapons and war preparations. Unfortunately, Canada has embarked on a 20-year plan to spend over $500 billion on militarism that will not make us safe. 70 billion of this will be spent on the purchase of 15 warships, and 50 billion will go to the life cycle cost of 188 jet bombers that will further destroy our climate and kill mostly poor people. The money spent on just 6 of these bombers could bring clean water to all Indigenous people in Canada. Peace groups are vigorously opposing this spending, of course. I want to talk about civilian war deaths. for every 2 combatants killed, you also kill 1 to 2 civilians. This was shown in the Uppsala conflict data program, where they examined major conflicts over 29 years until 2017. Those figures do not include the Rwanda massacre, which was not a usual war, rather a genocide. So as I say, they found that in war, 1/4 to half of fatalities are civilian. Killing civilians. I think that anyone with a voice, such as us, and especially people with power, have a responsibility to see what war looks like. And even more so, if they think that war is an option that can ever be on the table. I'm going to change the share here for a moment. And I'm going to show a 30-second clip, the opening scene of John Pilger's documentary film, The War You Don't See. Let me see if we have share computer sound. Okay, let's try this. If it's too loud, please let me know.
See all those people standing down there? About there, 1 o'clock. Once you get on, just open up. Again, Roger. I see you. Light them all up. 002 traffic, 260. Come on, fire. Hey, Roger. Keep shooting. Keep shooting.
Let's share screen again. Okay, so that, as I say, that was Baghdad 2007, and the context, you can see it in the movie, or rather in the documentary film, The War You Don't See. Now, let's see if I can keep moving. Lastly, I want to talk about the drain on the economy, the drain on the public purse, which causes massive harm in aggressor nations. Each year, $2 trillion is spent on militarism. More than half of that is spent by the United States, $1.25 trillion. If the United States were to take just 50 billion of that money, then the USA could be the most beloved and secure nation on earth by spending that 50 billion annually on abolishing world hunger, starvation, and providing clean water. So to sum up, we have 2 requests. First, that Council resolve to divest from weapons and fossil fuel. And secondly, to endorse the treaty for the prohibition of nuclear weapons, which unfortunately, as I said, Ottawa has not yet signed. And I think, just to end on a high note, the psalmist here reminds us that surprisingly, we are created little less than God, despite the harm that we do, that we can accomplish extraordinary things to help each other. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Martin. And does anybody have any questions or comments? Go ahead, Councillor Sturdivant.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Dr. Manning and Marilyn, if you're with us. Thank you for attending. Really appreciate your presentation, your heart for social justice. And I want to commend you in making me aware of the link between military emissions, which are confidential for security reasons, and the fact that they're estimated to be the greatest contributor to carbon emissions and affecting climate change. So I know that the Ban the Bomb program is something that was a peace movement starting in the 60s, and we're still working on that. It's my hope that we can move forward with this conversation because the world is becoming more and more in turmoil, it seems to me. I know, Doctor, that you are familiar with the many good works that the City of Langley is doing to reduce carbon emissions and be good stewards of our environment, and also the work that Metro Vancouver has done by delivering the ecological health framework by which all municipalities now look at policies and procedures through an environmental lens. So thank you again for your presentation, and I look forward to supporting you with my notice of motion at the latter part of this meeting. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none, well, thank you very much, you two, for coming tonight or this afternoon and presenting. And I'm sure we'll talk to you soon or see you around soon. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Good night. Good afternoon.
Yeah, I know. I keep saying good night. I'm sorry.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay, well, that was wonderful. So next up, we have the National Police Federation, potential new Surrey Police Department impacts to other RCMP municipalities. So this afternoon, we have Trevor Dinwoody who's the board director and regional representative of BC. And I'm not sure, is Sarah Nolan with you as well, the director of government relations, Trevor?
No, Sarah's bowed out of this one because it's getting a little bit late back home for her. She's based out of Ottawa. And she gave me a really good tutorial on Zoom. So I'm hoping that this won't be a complete disaster, but
You're all good. I'll pass it over to you then. Thank you.
Sure, thank you. And I'm gonna just share my screen here. I think I know how to do this. Is that coming up for you folks? No? Did it not work? Sorry, I'll try this again.
There it is.
And I'll start. There we go. So thank you very much for having us here, Mayor and councillors. I really appreciate the opportunity to have this conversation with you folks. By way of just an introduction, I'm Trevor Dinwoody. I was a police officer for the last 18 years. I've done all of my career here in the Lower Mainland, and the vast majority of that was done in Surrey. In January, I was elected as a board director for the National Police Federation, have taken leave from the RCMP to do that position. And the National Police Federation is the new RCMP union. If you guys didn't know, we certified last July and we ran elections through November and December, and we began on the very beginning of January. We represent 20,000 RCMP members across the country. We represent 7,000 of them, which are here in E Division. I'm one of 3 directors here in British Columbia. Of which we also represent 850 members of Surrey and the 200 members that are in Langley. The reason we're here today is obviously a hot ticket item is the Surrey transition, the transition to the Surrey Police Service. So what I want to do is just kind of take you through what we foresee being an issue, which will definitely spill out to the rest of the Lower Mainland. So we believe that this is a rushed, costly, and very unpopular plan. We believe there will be an inevitable, significant, widespread disruption of policing in the Lower Mainland if this plan is to go through, at least at the speed that they're being rushed at this time. The Surrey Police Service will have to heavily recruit from many different police agencies. As you guys are well aware, the RCMP's own survey recognized that only 14% of current serving RCMP members in Surrey would even consider applying for the Surrey Police Service. Most people are very pleased or happy to stay with the RCMP. You also might be aware that 41% of Vancouver Police Department's members currently live in Surrey, and there's a significant number that live in Langley. So they may want to patch over to prevent the commuting time. Also, it's a new opportunity to make a new name for themselves. So we believe what you'll see is there's going to be members from Vancouver, from Delta, from New West, from Port Moody, and specifically West Vancouver, because it's so hard to live over there, that will be applying and living in Surrey or working in Surrey. And then you'll have the musical chair effect, where you'll have police officers from all over going back and forth to different police jurisdictions. And that could have a profound effect on policing in the Lower Mainland, and it could cause significant issues for public safety. Obviously, the Justice Institute cannot hire, train over 800 police officers in the amount of time that the city has given us. So that's also a factor. There's going to be significant increased potential cost for integrated services. So if Surrey does pull out, there are three options. Their first options is that they contract the Vancouver Police Service or Police Department to do their homicides, their forensics, their collision analysts. Or number two is they stay within the integrated services, which is would be hopefully the best opportunity for all other agencies around, or communities around, municipalities around. And then the third option is that they create their own for every one of these. Now, we also know that they're suggesting that they're going to have less members than the Surrey RCMP currently has, with 794, whereas the RCMP currently has 843. So it'd be fairly difficult for them to create all those specialized sections with that number of individuals. Polling. So 86% of Surrey residents want to know the costs. They wanted a feasibility study, and they want to know the costs. To date, the city of Surrey has not come out with an accurate costing of what this is going to actually cost the taxpayers of Surrey. 77%, this is polling done by Polera. It's a third-party survey company that the National Police Federation commissioned to do these polls. 77% of residents of Surrey support keeping the RCMP. As well, 70% support a referendum on the matter. And Sarah told me this morning, she told me to keep it brief so you guys could have some questions. So I wanted to keep it under 10 minutes. So that's why I'm kind of powering through this, guys. I tend to be a bit of a windbag. I talk a lot. So ultimately, so I apologize about that. Ultimately, sorry, I'm looking at my notes here. So we call to you as a council. You have a very strong voice, as well as a commitment to your residents to maintain and uphold public safety, which includes a careful review of initiatives that may cause an increase to financial impact of your own policing budget. So you are a very powerful voice in the Lower Mainland. You guys can advocate on behalf of yourselves to keep your police budgets down and potentially sway some individuals as we want to a referendum. That's ultimately what we're looking for. We're looking for a regional referendum on the matter. Thank you. And I'm open to questions because I got another 3 minutes and 30 seconds.
That was great. Thank you, Trevor. Thank you for bringing that information forward. I think any information is good. So the more we can get on this. Does anybody have any questions or comments for Trevor? Councillor Sturdivant, was that a...
Yeah, sure. I'll be happy to talk. I think this is really important, and I appreciate the concise but informative presentation. Always good to learn more about our policing services, especially considering that a good portion of our budget is spent on policing services. It's my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, that in the event that a municipality chooses to go it alone rather than using the federal RCMP service, right away, the federal government does not provide the 10% financial
That's
benefit.
correct.
So right off the bat, we know it's going to cost more. But if Surrey insists on going it alone, then they'll have to incur that cost. For myself, I can say I'm happy with the RCMP here in Langley, and that there is a concern, however, moving forward, that the nature of policing needs to change with the culture, with the times. It's my understanding that the RCMP were originally established as more or less a paramilitary policing service. But now there's a request for more social interaction and special training, especially in incidences around personal behavior, mental health issues, and that sort of thing. Can you expand on that? If you see the future of policing, especially with the RCMP, who we are happy to be attached to, will be addressing some of those concerns by adjusting the policing model to be more socially astute and trying to de-escalate situations and that sort of thing?
Absolutely. So it's a timely question, as I was just back in Collingwood, Ontario last week for meetings, and the one of the main topics of the meeting was police modernization. I have a background in police modernization. I was actually the sergeant that at the time that created the Surrey Outreach Team, which was a team that worked on 135 A Street working with vulnerable individuals. I morphed that team and in fact designed a police mental health team that's now called the Police Mental Health Outreach Team there in Surrey. And the idea behind that team was to have trained police officers that actually train with Fraser Health and understand deteriorating behaviors and trying to deal with vulnerable individuals, marginalized people, as they're going through crisis. And we worked with, obviously we had mental health experts that worked with us. We had psychiatric nurses that rode in the cars with us, and we would be able to go to all sorts of different calls for service. And it was a profoundly different way of policing. Obviously it's not a hammer them type of job. It's more of a, let's get these people the resources, the help that they need, because obviously at the end of the day, the police officer can't be the social worker, can't be the mental health expert. We need to be there. We need to assist them to get them involved in those programs, and then follow up with them and ensure that they're following through. And that's what we do. So absolutely, I think that the RCMP realizes that we need to change, that we need to move forward. And the MPF has a very strong voice in advocating for that, obviously representing the 20,000 members of the RCMP. So a very timely question, because we are discussing our own strategy on how we are going to propose police modernization to the commissioner. So.
Just to follow up, and thank you very much for your encouraging words. For myself, I see that policing services are a social service in that we all pay into it and we all benefit from it. I'm very impressed by the professionals who are working in policing, especially in my community, and I certainly wish you well with your referendum. I would encourage council to support it, and thank you very much for your presentation moving forward.
Thank you.
Have a good day. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Sturtevant. I have Councillor Martin up next, please.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, it's valuable information for us to have. So I see the action you want us to take is you want us to ask Surrey about additional costs on the transition and what effect that would have in Langley. Is that correct?
Well, that's part of it. I mean, obviously you guys hold a lot of power just by your position. So to advocate on behalf of the Surrey RCMP would obviously be something you guys can do in your social groups and your professional groups. On top of that, we'd also obviously like your support on a referendum, a regional referendum of some sort, to just put this thing to bed. Honestly, we have the polling numbers. We know that 77% of the residents of Surrey want to keep the RCMP. So however you can advocate and assist us in that way would be great. The other way you can do that is also looking at your own policing service and how this may affect it. If 843 Surrey officers leave, I mean, there's all sorts of avenues of how that's going to affect you guys. Will that mean that Langley will have to take on STE positions for a period of time? Will that mean that the Surrey Force will pull out of the integrated teams, which then would cost more money for your policing budget to maintain those integrated teams? Obviously, it's not very cheap to keep a helicopter flying 24/7. So, you know, Surrey pays a chunk of that, a very big chunk of that, and it would be detrimental to other cities and municipalities around the Lower Mainland.
Yes, thank you very much. I mean, I would think that they'd stay with the integrated teams. And, you know, I have no problem doing what you're suggesting. However, power or no power, I'm not sure that the mayor of Surrey is going to listen to us or anybody else, it seems.
Yeah.
So I guess we can go
enough.
from there. And I don't know whether staff want to make a comment about maybe getting some kind of a report. It's pretty hard at this time to know exactly what's going to happen. I mean, to other communities. So I don't know. I don't know whether staff should look further into this or not. And if we could perhaps have a comment from Mr. Chung on this.
Thank you, Councillor Martin, through the mayor. I know this issue has been in discussion with the LMD district for a while now, and I know Surrey has been investigating the costs with respect to Surrey, and obviously the CAO's PPCs, the principal contact for the RCMP, are well in tune because obviously we are also concerned about potential cost implication to local governments, member municipalities. I know the mayor's forum, the LMD mayor's forum has also been discussing about this issue. So we're trying to find out as much information as possible. And throughout those avenues, hopefully we can be assured that the rest of the local member municipalities will not incur additional costs as a result of potential Surrey transition to a municipal police force. Thank you.
Thanks, Francis. So the regional committee that we have that you're a part of, to me, it would be more beneficial to come from a regional voice rather than, say, the city of Langley or the township of Langley. I just don't think that it's going to do much good with the current mayor of Surrey, but you'll keep us posted on how things are going with that regional committee.
Yeah, so we have presented to that regional committee. I think that was actually the catalyst to this one, I'm assuming. Ultimately, ultimately in my position, I would prefer to be out there meeting with you folks. I'd prefer to be going for coffee with you councillors and with the mayor. That's part of my job, and we can have these conversations. But, obviously with COVID, it's these Zoom type of situations. So that's what we're in. But yes, we did do a pitch to all the mayors and all RCMP mayors in the Lower Mainland. They're very well aware of our concerns. So, I mean, that is out there. Today was just to, again, hammer home one of the neighbors. You share a significantly long border with the RC, with Surrey, and we're always helping each other out. So I just thought that it would be a good conversation today for you and council.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none. Well, thank you, Trevor. Oh, sorry, Councillor Albrecht, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I was just wondering, have you approached the Solicitor General yet of BC to have a sit down with him?
We've met with all Surrey NDP MLAs, and then we've also approached the Solicitor General. At that point in time, he's not willing to talk to us. We've been told that, yes, anyways, so we've been shut out there.
Okay, thank you. That's unfortunate, and I think the residents of Surrey are going to be in a sticker shock when it comes time for the final shakedown of the costs. And yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of upset people if it continues down the path that it is. I think it's silly. I thought it was just posturing at first by the mayor, and I was hopeful that once the costs started to unfold, they would back away from that agenda, and it was just an election ploy sort of thing. But it seems like they're still continuing down that path, and I think it's a big mistake personally. So I'm happy to express my opinions to other council colleagues in other jurisdictions. So thank you for your presentation.
I really appreciate that. Thank you very much. And yes, we've asked for a feasibility study before this thing went so that we'd have at least a projection of the real costs, and that's been turned down at every corner. So.
Very interesting. So Trevor, you said 2 other people were elected as well. Who are those folks, and can council get a hold of them as well if they want more information?
Absolutely. So I'm presently in the Lower Mainland. So I work at the Lower Mainland. Rob Farrer, one of my partners, he works at a Vernon, and then Jeff Swan works off the Vancouver Island.
Excellent. And we can email you anytime if we have questions.
Anytime. Absolutely. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for taking the time today. And yes, it was a transgression from the mayor's regional, and I wanted council to have a very good idea of what all the information. So thank you for coming. I really appreciate it.
Perfect. Thank you for having me.
Take care, Trevor.
Bye-bye.
See you later.
Bye.
Okay, that was good. Going on, we have mayor's report, next section. So the next upcoming meetings for Langley City Council is November 23rd, 2020 at 3 p.m. again, remotely on Zoom. And then the following one will be on December 7th, 2020 at 3 p.m. Wow, this year has just flown by. Up next, we have Councillor Martin with library happenings.
Thank you very much. Okay, so the City of Langley Library update. Overdrive's next big library read is Reverie by Ryan LaSala, which will be available on Libby and Overdrive apps at Fraser Valley Regional Library Overdrive from November the 2nd to the 16th. And starting October 31st, Overdrive has given libraries unlimited access, Spanish language ebook, audiobook, and read-along titles. These titles will be available for the next 11 months with no holds and no waiting. The next slide, library staff have been busy making guest appearances at our partner organizations, virtual programs reaching kids and families all over Langley City. And the next slide, the library has celebrated Earth Day with sunflower starter kits, which were a big hit during our phase of express service over the summer. Recently, a happy customer shared a photo of the following sunflowers she was able to grow from the seed she received from the library. And next slide is take and make craft kits for all ages have been very popular in our community, even gaining buzz on social media. And I could attest that both my grandchildren got one and enjoyed making their stuff from their kit. And that's it for the update. Thank you very much.
That's great. Did you make the pina colada? No, pinata. It said fruity pinata or something. That looked really cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Councillor James, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just wanted to say, Councillor Martin, that I genuinely appreciate your updates. You are clearly vested in what's happening in the libraries, and I know you're the chair of the Fraser Valley Regional Library Board. So yeah, your reports are awesome, and they keep us informed and they keep the community informed. So I just genuinely want to say thank you.
Thank you very much. And of course, the reports come from the staff, but I think it is good to keep everybody updated. And I'm actually trying to get everybody on the board to do that. And I know the Mayor of Hope he gives his little library report like this. So it is catching on. Thank you.
That's great. Great information for everybody. Okay, anybody else? Okay, so we have up next an engineering update from Rick Baumhofer, Director of Engineering, Parks and Environment.
Okay,
Oh, there you are.
thank you very much. And let me get the PowerPoint here. No. All right, can you see that?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, so this engineering, parks and environment update for November 2020. The first shot here is a picture of 62nd Avenue at 200th Street, curb and sidewalk works. You can see there was a bit of a drainage issue and just a very poor sidewalk was there earlier, and now it's a new curb and gutter and sidewalk will be going in shortly. This is a shot of the median, new median on 203 Street between Fraser Highway and 56th Avenue. That curb slot has now been paved, and the final paving, unless, depending on the weather, it'll likely be next spring before this is fully repaved. This is a new retaining wall that was installed. It was a very poor condition retaining wall there earlier. It was falling apart, sloughing into the walkway. This is right off of 205A Street into City Park, and it was a gravel pathway, and now it's a paved pathway into it as well, which connects with the whole paved network in the Nickameckle pathway as well, trail network. This is a new crosswalk installed on 48th Avenue at Simons Elementary School. That connects to the paved pathway leading down to Grade Crescent. And the next shot is of Grade Crescent where that pathway connects up, and there's a new crosswalk that's been installed linking to the Sendall Gardens Trail. And there is a rapid flashing beacons that will be installed at that location. If you drive by there today, you will see that the beacons have been installed. There's still some glitches. It's not working 100% yet, but that will be fixed shortly. And this is the new median that was installed at 208th Street and Great Crescent. You can see here that the left turn movements, both northbound and southbound, can still be made. This is a shot of the repaved railway crossing under the 204th Street overpass on Duncan Way. If you recall, I think it was a number of council members commented about the quality and the hazard of this crossing. So in working with the railway company, this has been upgraded now. And this is also another spur line on Production Way that was repaved as well. This is a shot of a new rock pit that's installed at 46th Avenue and 206A Street. And I'm sure many of you are aware the south area of our city. It's really a well-draining, gravelly area. And the storm drainage system has historically all been going into rock pits, and a few of them into the local drainage channels. But from time to time, they do plug up, so they need to be renewed. And this is a substantial rock pit at this location. This is a shot of sanitary flow monitoring program where we have some concerns about capacities of our sanitary lines, and we monitor them just to ensure that we're keeping track of growth, and that as sewer flows increase, that we plan ahead to replace those lines. And this is a shot of the new Logan Creek level sensor reinstalled at the culvert crossing location. And this one is a new electrical service to the large sequoia tree in Douglas Park, where we are planning to install new Christmas lights on that large sequoia tree in the middle of the park. So that should be a nice new feature for this Christmas as well. And this is a shot of the City Park Picnic Shelter project. You recall there's one large shelter area for seating and then one prep area. And both of those are being removed, and 3 new shelters are being installed, similar to the one on the right side of the screen. That's a shot at Portage Park. So it'd be 3 30 by 30 shelters with room for 4 picnic benches and a prep table in each of the shelters, in the middle of each shelter. And you'll recall this, the city is replacing all of its post top poles, streetlight poles. This is showing the stockpile of poles, and those are all being installed as we speak. I think the pile is greatly reduced. And all of the teal green poles will be replaced, as well as all the LED lights upgraded by the end of this month. This is a shot of the signal upgrade at 253rd Avenue. As you can see, this is the control panel, and a lot of new programming and new cabling needs to be installed with that, with those upgrades. And here's a shot of new trees at Uplands Dog Park. This is a shot of 3 trees along the pathway, and if you walk through, there's probably been about 30, minimum 30 trees, new trees being installed in the area. As well as on the left-hand side, this is the new installation of where there was quite a pool of water every winter. That's all been replaced now with a big rock area, as well as large boulders along the edge. And you can see people are making use of those, even just for sitting areas while they're in the off-leash area where their dogs are at play in the off-leash area. And this next shot is this refurbishment of the signs, some of the wood signs that have been installed, Bryden Lagoon, as well as Sendle Gardens at the trail entrance at Great Crescent. And this is a shot just showing the success, really, of the Rotary Centennial Park Community Gardens. That's a recent picture showing there's still produce inside those gardens. And that's my update. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Any comments or questions for Mr. Baumhoff? Councillor Sturdivant.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Baumhoff, for another excellent report. There's no slowing you guys down. I'm amazed at the work you've been able to complete recently. You didn't even mention the Bryden Off-Leash Dog Park, which I attended with you most recently, and I'm very impressed with the work that's been done there. I do have a couple of questions, though, but first let me compliment you on the work that's being done on 203rd Street, making that a gateway into our community. I really appreciate the vision, the formatting, the style, the flow of traffic at that point there. I think it's really important to bring traffic into the center of our community and have it dispersed from there. You've done a great job with your team for sure. I do have a couple of questions, though. One is with regard to 208th Street, near, I guess it would be around 45th. The pavement there has had a lot of patching done over the course of this summer. And I was under the impression that we had replaced that pavement just, what, a half a dozen years ago or so. Now, I might be mistaken, but, you know, there was a while when that particular stretch of roadway was all dug up for the longest time. And now I see that there's pavement cracking there. And I was just wondering if that's going to be an ongoing issue, if we're going to have to replace that sooner rather than later, or if in fact some of that is actually in the township. Can you expand on that a little bit?
So it's at 45A and 208th?
Yeah, it's around there. It's on the slope going up into Brookswood there, but it's on the east side of 208th Street there. There's just a lot of patchwork that seems to have been done there, with cracking being patched up and like that. So I was just curious to know what was going on there. If it happens to be in the township, then please excuse me. I just thought I'd follow up because I happened to get out at least one day and have a look, and I thought, what is that?
It's very well possible if it's on the east side that it is the township. However, it's the borderline is right there. So I can have a look at it and make sure.
Well, that would be great. I appreciate that. And just another comment question too, as I do annually with regard to the daylight savings time. Are we doing a survey of the street lights to be sure that they're all on? Because I've seen a number that are out, and I can't help but wonder if maybe we could send somebody around after hours to see which lights need maintenance.
Well, as you know, the city has embarked on a LED replacement program, and there were a number of lights of the old style that were burnt out, but we were holding back on replacing until the LED program went through, and that should be done by the end of this month. So once the LEDs are in, I'd be very surprised if we have many out. There will be some, I'm sure, but it should be a lot better than what it has been.
Excellent. As always, thank you again for your report. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Sturdivant. Councillor Martin, I believe you have your hand up.
Thank you. I'm not on mute. Okay. Yeah, thanks for your report, Mr. Baumhoff. In regards to the picnic shelters at City Park, as I mentioned to you today, there's been a few comments on Facebook. What are they doing? What are they doing? The washroom there, is it open year round? The one at Al Anderson Pool? I'm not inside, but the outside entrance one?
I believe it is. I'm not sure if Kim is in the meeting here, but I'd need to confirm that for you 100%.
Yeah, I mean, I think I find that park, since we put the new playground in, certainly in the summertime, very well used. The washroom is not that convenient. And I mean, I guess the other thing is, do we put a washroom into the park somewhere? But, when you got small kids and they have to go to the bathroom, you have to walk all the way around the pool to the other side. So I was wondering if it was open in the winter, but it's certainly not very convenient to use at any time of the year when you're in the park. Just might be something you want to check on, but I think everybody will be really happy with the new picnic shelters that we have. And I also commented to you on the 208th median. I think when we first discussed this, I thought there was going to be no left turn onto grade, and there is. But what I did find was that left-hand turn lane is very narrow. I guess you have to come to a certain width, but maybe it's just because of the medium. But even my son commented, he thought how narrow the turn was, and there's nothing we can do now. But I just wondered if there was a width that you have to stay with when you're doing something like that.
Yeah, it's typically about 2.3 meters, and it will definitely look far narrower than the travel lane. So that's where, when you're driving along the road and you turn into it, it does force you to slow down as well.
Yeah.
It narrows down.
Yeah, which is fine. I just felt that the first time I used it, I thought, wow, this is really narrow. And maybe I was always used to using it without the medium. It could be just a perception thing. So just thought I'd mention that. Thank you.
Yep.
Great, Councillor James.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Martin literally just asked my question, so thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I was actually going to comment about City Park. Actually, I've had a couple of emails. So I'm wondering in the future, if we do something like this, maybe we could have a sign up letting people know. I know I was walking the dog through the park the other night, And people were standing at the fence going, what are they doing? Why did they rip this out? So yeah, maybe it's just some signage just to let people know it's okay. There's something else coming in the end. So
Yeah, I'm pretty sure there's a sign. We normally on all our projects, we put signs up, but I'll double check and make sure that it's there.
I didn't see one. It might be on the driveway coming through, but if you're walking through the trails, you can't see it.
Okay.
So yeah. And by the way, that retaining wall, I've had numerous compliments on that. The Uplands Dog Park, the trees going in, the other one, the new one we just went to, fantastic job by you guys. And so many more people are out enjoying the outdoors right now, especially, well, tonight is going to change, but we've had such nice weather for so long. So people in the community are really appreciating it. So thank you for making COVID-19 a little bit better for us.
That's great. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, anyone else? We'll let Mr. Baumhoff off the hook now, I guess. Thank you. Okay, so moving on to bylaws. We have bylaw 3141, 2020 to 2024 financial plan bylaw amendment bylaw, first, second, and third reading of a bylaw to amend the financial plan for 2020 to 2024. Mr. Light, I believe you would like to speak to this.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, this is an amendment to our 2020 financial plan. We're amending the capital improvement plan. There's just 9 projects that we want to bring to council's attention. The first one is probably the major reason why we're doing this budget amendment at this time. We have incurred some costs relating to COVID-19 response, and we wanted to provide council an opportunity to review those, as well as give authority for the city to meet those expenditures in regards to our budget. And the other projects are related to a number of different things, but some of them relate to some grants that we received from other levels of government, TransLink, and even the Fraser Valley Regional Library. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Great, thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions? Councillor Paul.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, to Mr. Light. Just a quick question. I noticed that we were planning on moving the urban forest management. Do you know where that's planning to be?
So that one of the projects that was included already in our 2020 plan that we're going to defer is, as you say, the urban forest management. And it's something that will get deferred for probably 2 years. There are a number of projects that engineering wants to entertain with the funding that we have. And as you know, we have less funding anticipated in 2021 because we don't have the casino proceeds.
So I guess just to follow up, when will that be included? Because I know that I think the urban forest management was one of the strategic goals, I think, or so I just kind of what the point is and how that would be wrapped up, basically.
So as I said, 2 years from now, so not in the 2021, but in the 2023.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Great, thanks, Councillor Paul. Councillor Stortaboom, you are next.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Lake, for your report. I just want to say how much I appreciate staff working through this COVID-19 situation, all the great work that you do keeping us safe, and making those tough decisions with us and how to adjust our budget so that we can be fiscally responsible. I'm happy to see that these initiatives that are approved can be rebudgeted for future years in keeping with casino proceeds that will be anticipated when we come out of this thing. So just wanted to say thank you for your help, assistance, guidance in these difficult times, not only physically, but financially as well. Thank you again. And thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Wallace, please go ahead.
Thank you. Councillor Paul's question to you kind of intrigued me in regards to the urban forest plan and moving forward with possible developments in the downtown core, even before that, and how if that plan is put on hold, how can we implement an urban forest to take place in that. Does that make sense, that question?
So you're asking if developments now are required to install trees along the property lines?
Well, not just trees, but just anything that would incorporate the urban forest plan. Like, well, we don't really know what the urban forest plan is, but
I'll have to defer that to Carl, see if he has some response in regards to development.
Yes, through the mayor to councillor. As you know, we're undertaking a draft OCP, and we'll have some draft policies in there. I think also with our development process, our development application process, we do in certain cases, if there's neighboring trees to redevelopment sites, asking for an arborist report and ensuring that the design of these adjacent buildings, protect the drip line of those trees. And as Mr. Light mentioned, when we require the new frontages to be constructed with new developments, of course, we require street trees. And in some cases, we request additional trees to be planted to start working on that canopy in the absence of an urban forest management plan. And the OCP itself is also the draft OCP, which we will be bringing to council shortly here and bringing it forward to the public. We're going to be proposing a number of open spaces and plazas where there's additional areas for those type of street trees and plaza trees to create that canopy.
Thank you. That was the last part of your answer was what I was looking for as far as plazas and other areas aside from residential places, but just even in industrial and commercial places looking at the urban forest. Thank you.
Great. Councillor Bahal, did you have another comment?
Yeah, thanks. And this, I guess, is sort of a follow-up then. I know at one point we were looking at greening surface parking lots. Is that still something that's being considered as part of the OCP and accompanying zoning bylaw update? Because I know that would kind of speak to urban forest canopy management as well.
Yes, through the mayor to the councillor. Yes, as part of our updated development permit guidelines that we'll be proposing as part of the new OCP is, yes, requiring street trees or parking lot trees to be planted with those surface lots where they occur.
That gives me more comfort that we're deferring this 2 years, knowing that we're considering adding those tree requirements into surface parking lots and also beefing up our plans around plazas. So thank you.
Okay, great. Any further discussion? I will read the motion. So that the bylaw cited as the financial plan 2020 to 2024, bylaw 2020 number 3120, amendment number 2, bylaw 3141 be read a first, second, and third time. Need a mover and a seconder. Councillor Martin and Stewart Boone. Further discussion. Councillor James? Okay, sorry, I missed you on that. I apologize. Okay, no further discussion on that. I'll call the vote. All those in favor? And any opposed? Seeing none, that carries. Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Light. Okay, on to administrative reports. We have extension of terms for the task groups. Motion forward is that City Council extend the term of the following task groups to December 31st, 2021. 2021, it just seems like forever away, but it's not. So the motion is that City extend the terms. So the Arts and Culture Task Group, the Crime Prevention Task Group, the Economic Development Task Group, the Environmental Task Group, and the Performing Arts and Cultural Center Task Group, which have all done absolutely fantastic work. So I need a mover and a seconder on that, folks. Councillor James, Councillor Albrecht. Any further discussion on this? And everybody's happy on their task force. Everything's good. Okay, well then I will call the vote. All those in favor? Any opposed? And we will carry on with those. Wonderful. Council policy, CO-74, minute taking standards for open and closed meetings. The motion is that council policy CO10 council minutes be repealed, and 2, that council policy CO-24 or 74 minute taking standards for open and closed meetings be approved. A mover and a seconder on that. Councillor Albrecht, Councillor Pahal, and any discussion on that, on the changes. Councillor Pahal, go ahead, please.
I just wanted to say I fully support this, and I know there was a lot of work that went into this update, but seeing consistent minutes across our committee meetings and that the current policy is 2 sentences and expanded to something that's more fulsome, I think is due. So thank you for the work that went into that, and I fully support the policy.
Great, thank you. Yes, I think we all echo those sentiments. Councillor Albrecht, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And yeah, I do. I too want to thank staff for putting this together. It certainly adds a lot of clarity and definition to our meetings and the minutes, and it's long overdue. So I'm fully supportive as well.
Great, thank you very much. Anyone else? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Any opposed? And that's carried. And yes, thank you very much, Ms. Kenny, for your wonderful, you and the rest of the staff for work on this. Okay, we have next up feasibility of solar power traffic control equipment. Mr. Baumhoff, I don't believe you need to speak to this. Is that correct?
Not necessarily, unless there's any questions that council has.
Nope, I'm getting some. Oh, Councillor Sturtevant.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Baumhoff, for your report. I've read it, and I can honestly say that I believe that this initiative is worthwhile, but it may be premature for us to adventure into this arena. I couldn't help but think that during these days when we had smoke, that the solar panels just don't work when there's that much smoke in the air, and it might compromise some traffic signals and lights if they don't have that power because of the smoke. So it may be a little premature for that, and the replacement of batteries and such is always going to be a nuisance. I would suggest then that council continue on with what we have, as much as solar power is something we keep in mind for the future. Thank you again, and thank you, Madam Mayor.
Great, thank you, Councillor Sturtevant. Yeah, I just want to take this time to thank staff for looking into this. I know I'm a huge component of having solar powered anything if we can. So a lot of great information, and I think I was actually, I can't remember if it was actually me or not that actually requested staff to look into it. So thank you for doing that. I think it's really important, anything that we can have solar, that we do have solar. So thank you. Okay, so the motion is the council receives staff's report on the feasibility of solar power traffic control equipment for information. I call the vote. I need Councillor Sturtevant, Councillor Pahal, mover and seconder. All those in favor, any opposed? And that carries. Thank you very much. And Mr. Baumhoff, you're just going to stay there because you're up next again. Okay, so next up is the crosswalk on 208 and 55A Avenue, project cost update. Motion is that council receive the staff report dated November 2nd, 2020 for information, and that the implementation of a crosswalk on 208th Street and 55A Avenue not proceed at this time. I need a mover and a seconder. Councillor Pahal, Councillor Martin, and discussion. Go ahead, Councillor Pahal.
45A.
Sorry, did I say 42?
55A.
Sorry, 45A. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd actually like to move an amendment to the motion that the second item be changed, that the implementation of the crosswalk on 208th Street and 45A proceed using funding from the 2020 traffic calming budget to cover the additional $37,199 that will be required to construct the crosswalk at this location.
I'll second.
Okay, Further,
And if I could speak, or sorry.
we got a seconder, so go ahead.
Okay, cool. So I'll just give you some reasoning behind that. So for the traffic calming budget, I know in the Q3 executive report, there were no traffic calming projects identified. And while this is not traffic calming, I believe it speaks to the idea of creating safety in our community when it comes to pedestrians, cycling, etc. So to me, it feels like this would be within the spirit of traffic calming. Just some things that I noticed in the area is that the request for this location, it's not just one person that has requested this. I got a request, obviously from the same person we all did, from the parents pack at Uplands. And I know that I did a survey last winter, and this was one of the top 5 requests for locations. And looking into it a little bit further, there's actually no safe crosswalks between 48th and 44th. So that's about an 830 meter gap. So for an average person, that's a 10 to 15 minute walk. And this is one of the few places in our community where there is such a gap in our pedestrian network. So if we're able to put this in the worst case scenario today, it's about 410 meters for someone to walk down and back. So that's adding 5 minutes to their walk, say if they wanted to get to Upland School as an example. And we know that people will only walk 10, 15 minutes before they'll get in their car and drive. So I think by putting this in, it's going to reduce that. So instead of the 829 meters, I think that reduces it to 529 meters, which will cut about a minute or two off. So 3 minutes in total, which will actually encourage more people to walk. So I think that, you know, beyond that, it's about creating that connectivity to a portion of our community that's been underserved. And when I look at the rest of Langley City, we have a really good connectivity across 200 Street and a lot of our major roads. But on 208 Street, there's just a gap. So for me, it's not just about one person's request. It's about looking at an area in town that's been underserved for a long time when it comes to creating a connected pedestrian network. So I'm hoping that others on council will consider this.
Councillor Sturgeon.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the initiative and Councillor Pahal's remarks. I'm not really comfortable with having a crosswalk at that location, as much as it may be that much more convenient for people, and I appreciate the interest in having that sort of thing. It suggests to me that having a crosswalk on a slope like that might actually create a liability where people are under the impression that they are safe in a crosswalk, but that speeding traffic might compromise that safety. I'm concerned about the city taking a liability in putting a crosswalk into an area where traffic is usually going above speed and up or down a hill. So I'm really reluctant to support this initiative as much as I would like to. And I think that I have the same concerns on 200th Street on that slope where traffic is racing, and we'd like to have a crosswalk there to connect the green space under the power lines, but it's just not that safe. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Councillor Sturgeon. Councillor Albrecht and then Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I'm actually supportive of this for many of the reasons that Councillor Pahal has already noted. And my position is that that whole Uplands quadrant is very limited in terms of accessibility and walkability. And this is something that we've been trying to build towards, more walkability in our community. And the hill and the slope at grade and north of this location makes it next to impossible to have any kind of crossing. The crossing at 45A is very good in terms of sight lines and stopping distances. And I don't see any liability whatsoever. We have liability at all intersections for that matter. And if someone chooses to sue us, we would have to be defending it. If it's lit up properly and appropriately, I think that it's not a problem with sightlines whatsoever. It does connect our trail networks much more Actively, we have the off-leash dog park, we've got the hydro lines, we've got the Penzer. It provides a really accessible corridor right across our community, and even goes over to like Murrayville and connects up with Newlands and so on. So I think this is a valuable connection. I think it's something that we should look at and implement. So that's kind of where I'm coming from. So thank you for the time.
Thank you, Councillor Martin.
Thank you very much. Well, I've never been in favor of a mid crossing on 208. As far as, safety in the community, having traveled that road at least 3 or 4 times a week, I agree with Councillor Storteboom. The speed is excessive. I've mentioned it on more than one occasion. Having it at 45A, coming up the hill, you're basically up over the hill and there's a crosswalk. And I understand there may be lights, but I don't see that it would be a safety for our community. There's a crosswalk at 44th Avenue. From the pathway or the walkway, I'm assuming it's a 2-minute walk. And Councillor Albrecht mentioned walkability in our community. Well, if we want walkability in our community, they can take 2 minutes and walk up to the 44th crosswalk. That would even better connect it, just to go straight down 44th to go to the off-leash park. So I just don't see how that's going to help walkability by putting it there. I think it's going to be dangerous for the kids. If we had a request from the PAC, I don't recall seeing it. According to the staff, we've had 3 requests. And for us to spend nearly $160,000 to put in a crosswalk where they're saying the foot traffic between 8:30 and 3:30 is basically 0. ICBC crash data also indicates that 0 pedestrian related collisions have occurred in the past 10 years. So I cannot justify spending $160,000 on a crosswalk that I don't think is going to be safe for the community when there's one 2 minutes away. Maybe the best thing to do would be to close off the walkway there, and people would have to go around. So I just can't support this, not at a cost of $160,000. Well, it's going to be even more than that because we've already spent money on that. So no, I can't support it.
Thank you for your comments. Councillor James, you're up next.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I appreciate and respect everyone's comments on this. I'm coming from a different place as far as the speed on 208 than I don't want to suggest for a second that I think a crosswalk would, be the end all and be all, but I do think that it would probably help mitigate the speeding, in fact, especially if flashers were put in place. And to be honest with you, I travel 208 on a regular basis because that's my way home. And I do see kids jaywalking and parents jaywalking, and it terrifies me. So in order to express my opinion appropriately today, I also took a drive up 208 and looked at the actual location. And I don't see site obstructions. So I think I'm going to be in favor of this one. Actually, I'm going to support Councillor Pahal's motion. Thank you.
Councillor Martin, did you have, you're on mute. Unmute yourself, please.
Sorry about that.
That's
yeah,
okay.
I actually drove by there when school was letting out today. I never saw a soul on the road. That was about 2:30. And I guess what I forgot to mention earlier is, why are we paying our engineers all the money we pay them and go against their recommendation? None of them are in support of a crosswalk there. So if we're not going to listen to our staff, why bother even having them? Although I don't want to get rid of you, Rick, or anybody else.
Now that we all know how old he is. Councillor Albrecht.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I don't think this is a matter of staff saying that they don't recommend a crosswalk at the location. They're recommending not to use the funding for a crosswalk at that location. This is more than school. This is more than speed. This is trying to build a complete community that's walkable and accessible for everyone. And quite honestly, there's studies out there that talk about connectivity and the distance involved, and to go down to 48th Avenue to cross 208 Street safely, or to 44th Avenue to cross 208 safely, to add something in between, I don't see as prohibitive, and I think is an effective use of dollars. This isn't just about school kids and school hours. This is about all the time. People are much more active now. They're exploring our trails. We're trying to make it more convenient and more accessible for everybody in all parts of our community. And this would help in that regard. So thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wallace.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I do agree with my colleagues in I would like to see a crosswalk there. I think the staff have done an amazing job at what they've done, and it has nothing to do with staff. I think we are elected as officials to just to do what we're doing right now. So I look into the future and the growth of Brookswood area and the growth of the city, and we have the opportunity to build a crosswalk here. And I would love to see one, and I know we've already looked at it on 200th Street. So maybe we start with this one and then find a way. I don't feel the one on 200th and this one are quite the same when it comes to the slope. When you're going down 200th, it's quite the steep slope. You are on an even surface with the crosswalk that is being proposed. So I'm in favor of it.
Can I just ask for my own personal, I guess, staff for clarification, is there a difference? So my concern would be that it's very open and would need other traffic calming measures like we have at the bottom with the trees and the safe refuge and all that kind of stuff. Now, would that be implemented with this kind of crosswalk, or would it be better to have it open with the flashing lights?
It's always, the way this has been designed is just a straight crosswalk crossing, no median or refuge area in the middle. Obviously shorter distance, and if there was a refuge in the middle, I think that adds an extra safety enhancement, but it's not necessary. In this situation, it's a 4-lane crossing. The rapid flashing beacons would be activated, at the crossing. People would see, in some cases, I guess I should backtrack on the median. There's been some issues with visibility because of the growth of vegetation in the median. So that it's just got to be managed properly so that the visibility is still maintained. But it's not necessary for a crossing like this, a 4-lane crossing. It's the travel speeds obviously are a concern, but that is the idea of having those rapid flashing beacons, and they'll be right across the road. They won't be just on the side of the road. It'll be elevated right over the lanes.
Okay, so would there be other traffic calming measures we could put in there with the crosswalk, or would that be unnecessary? Like, are we doing everything we can is basically what I'm asking. So, are there other traffic calming measures we could put in that area? Like bulbs or, I don't know, like, you know what I'm saying? Like different curves to the, and how much would that cost? That would be my concern, because people are going on an average of about 80 there, minimum.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's not impossible to do. I mean, we just have not factored that into this scenario. And if in order to put a median in, you need to either narrow the lanes down and possibly widen out the curbs. So depending on how much work is necessary to add that refuge or a median area, that would be, tell you what the extra cost would be. But I could see it easily being, somewhere 50 to 100,000 more to do that kind of initiative versus just a straight signal or the rapid flashing beacons. In this scenario, this is an acceptable crossing design under the TAC, the Transportation Association of Canada guidelines. So it wouldn't be anything contrary to that. Are there things you can do to always enhance it, make it safer? Yes, but that's really a choice and a budget consideration.
Thank you. That clarifies my question. I just wasn't sure if there was one better than the other. So thank you. Thank you, Mr. Baumhoff. Okay, any other comments? I guess we're going to vote on the amendment because we had a mover and a seconder to that, correct, Ms. Kenny? I think it was Nathan and Mr. Albrecht that had the, okay, so we're going to vote on the amendment. All those, Nathan, did you want to read it again maybe? Does anybody need clarification or? Anybody need clarification on that?
Yeah, go again.
Okay, Councillor Pahal, maybe read it again, please.
Sure. So the last part is that the implementation of the crosswalk on 208 Street at 45A proceed using funding from the 2020 traffic calming budget to cover the additional $37,199 that will be required to construct the crosswalk in this location.
Okay, so we're going to vote on adding that on an amendment. So all those in favor on the amendment? Any opposed?
I'd like to be recorded, please.
Yeah, Councillor Martin and Councillor Sturdivant opposed. And then we have to vote on the main motion with that council received the staff report and the new amendment. So any further discussion on that? Councillor Sturdivant?
Just a point of order in that we can acknowledge receiving the report. We're not necessarily voting that we're moving forward with the report. Is that right? That's the amendment that's covered that moving forward.
If I may, no, I think the report specifies exactly like the staff. I'm receiving the report because it has the information required to move forward. So
we're only receiving the report.
Yes.
Okay, I can receive the report. I just want to move forward with it right now. Thank you.
Okay,
Madam Mayor.
Yeah, Kenny, Ms. Kenny, can you clarify that, please?
I'm just seeking clarification. My understanding was that it was moved and seconded the first part to receive the report, and then there also is the second part that is going to be part of this. So what we're voting on now is both 1 and 2 with amended 2. Is that correct?
That's how I perceived it, was we are voting on 1 and 2.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Any further discussion?
If I may, I'd prefer to break those two up. I'm happy to receive the report and keep it available for us. But the second part is not working for me.
Ms. Kenny, I think that's acceptable, isn't it? Just split it in 2 and vote on 1 and then 2?
Yes, a request for separation is certainly appropriate. Thank you.
Excellent. Okay, so we will vote on 1 that council received the staff report dated November 2nd, 2020 for information. All those in favor? Any opposed? Okay, and then we will vote on 2 that the implementation of the Nathan, can you read that, please? I started reading mine. I don't have it.
Sure. That the implementation of the crosswalk on 208 Street and, sorry, I'm going to start again. That the implementation of a crosswalk on 208 Street at 45A Avenue proceed using funding from the 2020 traffic calming budget to cover the additional $37,199 that will be required to construct the crosswalk at this location.
Okay, all those in favor? Who's opposed? Councillor Martin and Councillor Sturdivant opposed.
Recorded.
Okay. All right, so that carries. Moving on. New and unfinished business. So we have motions and notices of motions. Speed flasher signs along 208th corridor. Councillor Pahal.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and let me just get to that section here. Motions, okay. And then I'm happy to provide context if there's a seconder. Should I read the whole thing, or is that something that we can just accept as read?
No, I believe Ms. Kenny has to read the entire motion, does he not?
It's up to council whether they wish to take it as read or wish to have it read out.
Can we take it as read? I don't see anybody responding. So Councillor Wallace?
I think it should be read out for the public.
Okay, no problem. I'll do that. Okay. Whereas speed is an ongoing concern for residents along the 208th Street corridor, whereas police enforcement results in a short-term reduction in speeding at specific locations, as police must be physically present at these locations, whereas speed cameras at intersections provide a long-term reduction in speeding at specific locations, as they are always present, whereas Langley City has speed flasher signs, which can record speeds at the 208th Street Causeway and 208th Street Hill, whereas the speed cameras are installed and managed by the provincial government and its agencies, and whereas the provincial government and its agencies need evidence that speeding or crashes are significant issues along specific corridors before considering installing speed cameras at intersections, therefore be it resolved that Langley City staff activate the speed recording feature of the speed flasher signs along the 208th Street corridor, and that Langley City staff present back to council a report that shows the minimum, maximum, and 85 percentile speed for vehicles at the 200th Street corridor flasher sign locations over the data recording period.
Great. I'll second that, if you'd like.
And
discussion, Councillor Sturtevant.
Thank you very much. Just a little bit of clarification on that. Is there an added cost to that installation by updating that particular feature, or is it just a matter of turning on a switch or something like that?
Yeah, I could respond to that. There is no additional cost. There will be some staff time to go out and actually download the data from the speed reader board, but it's relatively minor.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll be supporting it.
Yep. Any other questions? Now, is there only two or three along there? Two?
On 208th Street, I believe there's two. We will actually be going out and checking the data on all of the speed reader boards, just so that we start to collect a database on all speeds. And we'll report back on all the locations.
Is there any plan for 200th Street next, maybe?
200th Street, there is a recent installation, and I believe it's in both directions. I'd have to just double check, but at the hill near Penzer Park, there's been two speed reader boards, and they'll be checked as well.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, any other further discussion on this? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Any opposed? And that carries. Thank you for bringing that forward, Councillor Pahal. Okay, so next up, I am going to insert your notice of motion before correspondence, if you like, or we can do, Kelly or Ms. Kenny, is it okay if we insert it as B or C?
Madam Mayor, it would be appropriate to do it under right here, notice of motions.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Councillor Sturtevant. I will throw it over to you.
Well, thank you, Madam Mayor. I was particularly impressed by my engagement with Dr. Martin.
Point of order, is it just a motion, right? It's no conversation, right? No debate, no discussion?
It's
Do
a
you want to read
notice.
out a motion or just tell you that it's coming?
It's a notice of motion.
Okay, notice of motion. I am particularly impressed by this initiative, and I'll be bringing forward a motion at the next meeting.
Great. Thank you.
Madam Mayor?
Yes, Ms. Kenny.
A notice of motion, and the notice should be read out so that council is made aware of the notice being made and what will be coming forward at the next meeting.
Okay, I'll be happy to read it out. It's just a rough draft, but this is the crux of it. Because the Treaty for the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons is a landmark global agreement calling for national and local governments to abandon nuclear weapons of war. Because this treaty is a global agreement that was adopted in 2017, and that the Nobel Peace Prize Committee has acknowledged this initiative as providing the best pathway towards a world without nuclear weapons. Because nuclear weapons threaten every nation's security and would cause catastrophic humanitarian and environmental harm. Because cities are the main targets of nuclear weapons, municipalities have a special responsibility to their constituents to speak out against any role for nuclear weapons in national security doctrines. Because municipal governments form a close and active link with their constituents and local social movements. Because a national awareness is needed to advance the standard determined by the TPNW against nuclear weapon states and their military alliances with countries that have nuclear weapons. Because the time has come to end decades of deadlock, disarmament, and moving the world towards the elimination of nuclear weapons.
Point of
Because
order,
there
Madam
is
Chair.
no
I thought there
winner
was no
in
discussion
an
on
exchange of
proposed
nuclear
motion.
weapons. Be it resolved that Langley City support the Mayor's For Peace appeal and send a letter to the Government of Canada to break the unacceptable status quo regarding a tolerant nuclear weapons policy by taking decisive steps toward the global elimination of nuclear weapons of war. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Councillor Storterboom. We look forward to your motion, I believe, at the next upcoming council meeting.
Thank you.
Okay. Moving on, we have last is correspondence. And we have correspondence from Cultivating Institute of Taoism, November 7th, 2020, Taoist Pai Chi Arts 50th Anniversary Day. Number 2, we had a letter from the province of BC in response to city requests for emergency funding. And 3, we had City of Richmond proposed Roberts Bank Terminal 2 expansion project. So what is council's wishes with this, just to receive for information? Okay, I need a mover and a seconder on that. I'll take Councillor Pahal, Councillor James, call the vote. All those in favor? Any opposed to receiving it as information? I see none. That carries. Right, a motion to hold a closed meeting, that the council meeting immediately following this meeting be closed to the public, as the subject matter being considered relates to items which comply with the following closed meeting criteria specified in section 90 of the community charter. 1, a part of a council meeting may be closed to the public if the subject matter being considered relates to or is one or more of the following: A, personal information about an identifiable individual who holds or is being considered for a position as an officer, employee, or agent of the municipality or another position appointed by the municipality. E, the acquisition, disposition, or expropriation of land or improvements. If the council considers that disclosure could reasonably be expected to harm the interests of the municipality. K, negotiations and related discussions respecting the proposed provision of a municipal service that are at their preliminary stages and that, in view of the council, could reasonably be expected to harm the interests of the municipality if they were held in public. Mover and a seconder. Councillor James, Councillor Storterboom, any discussion on that? See none, call the vote. All those in favor? Any opposed? That carries. All right, motion that the meeting adjourn. I need a mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Storterboom, Councillor James, thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. All right, Ms. Kenny, we can